Hi, this is May Doldalau, and I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, which we are going to be covering how my 3-year-old son makes 6% with his savings. So I want to welcome you all today. Thank you for joining. My name is Melisa Doldalau. However, you can call me May. And my son really does make 6% with the money in his savings. So let's begin. Who am I? I live in Honolulu, Hawaii. You might hear the birds in the background. I'm actually outside. It's 6:30 in the morning. And I'm doing this presentation for you before my son actually wakes up so that I can be there when he's awake. I actually got married in 2012 to my husband, Jamel, and he's in the picture. And our son, Jordan, he's 3 years old. And so that's a picture of us standing over Waikiki. Something else about me that is interesting probably to you is that we paid off all our debt, which was about $350,000, and improved our net worth by $500,000 in 5 years. And that was between 2012 and 2017. We actually did it faster, but that's okay. What can I do for you? I will show you exactly step by step how our 3-year-old son makes 6% with his savings. And after this presentation, you will understand how to do the same with your children if you choose. Do you pay interest to a bank? Okay, so first I want to ask you a question. Do you have debt? If you do, then you pay your payments to a bank or credit card company, yes? So what is your interest rate? How much interest do you pay? So if you need to figure out how to calculate that, if you want to know how much interest you pay per year, this is not assuming compounding, okay? So this is just a simple interest calculation. Compound interest is actually higher, but just simple interest calculation, $10,000, let's say you have $10,000 on your credit card and you're paying 6%, then your interest for the year is going to be $600. Would you rather pay interest to your children instead? My husband and I asked this question 2 years ago, and we said yes. We have a business line of credit at 6.5% interest rate. We were paying it down monthly, and we were paying interest to the bank until we decided to pay our son Jordan instead. What are the pros and cons of paying your child interest? The pros, the benefits, are number one, if your child lends you money and you pay them the interest instead of a bank, your child will make more interest, usually, than a savings account. Your child's investment is less risky than the stock market. You pay less interest if you pay the bank more. And you will feel better about paying off your debt because you're paying your son back or your daughter back. Okay? So these are the pros and cons of your child lending you money to pay down your debt and then you paying your son or daughter back. Okay, that's the pros and cons. So what are the risks? Well, if you aren't credit worthy, you may not pay your child back. Okay? Your child's investment may make more somewhere else, like in a stock or something like that. And you have to be organized like a bank and set up all the payments. So that's the cons. For us, it was low risk and a higher return for our son. We decided that it was a low risk investment since we are both good at paying back our debt. We never missed a payment on any credit card or line of credit or a loan. And we wanted our son to make more interest with his savings money. We also didn't want to invest it in the stock market at the time due to the risk of stocks going up and down in value. Finally, we wanted to pay less interest to the bank. So how do we pay our interest to our son? There are 5 steps that I follow, and I'm going to go through them today in great detail. So step number 1 is I compare interest rates for our son's savings and our line of credit. Okay, step number 2 was I determine how much our son could lend us. Step number 3 is I created a loan from our son. Step number 4 is I recorded the date of the loan, the amount, where it came from, interest rate, and payoff date. And step number 5 is I set up automatic payments in our online banking to pay back our son. So let's start with step number 1, compare interest rates. Our son Jordan's interest rate and annual percentage yield was 0.01% in his savings account. Our business line of credit's interest rate was 6.5%. So the comparison was between 0.01% versus 6.5%. For 1 year, if you'd use a compound interest calculator, and I found one at investor.gov because I know savings accounts interest is compounded daily. So for 1 year, his savings account with and I forgot to tell you the amount, $2,700. Let's use the amount $2,700. For 1 year, if that's compounding at 0.01%, that's 27 cents. He's only making 27 cents in his savings account. Now, if he was being paid 6.5%, he would make $181.31. So as you can see, there is a big difference between 0.01% and 6.5%. So step number 2 was I determined how much our son could lend. So since I figured the interest rate was good for my son, I decided, okay, let's borrow from our son. How much can he lend us? We looked at Jordan's savings and he had $3,000. He needed to keep a minimum balance of $300 in the account to avoid service fees. So the amount of money he could lend us was $3,000 minus $300, which is $2,700. And that's how I got the amount on the prior slide. So you need to understand when you're borrowing from a savings account, be sure you always keep the minimum balance. So step 3, we took out a loan from our son. We decided to take out a $2,700 loan at 6% from our son. We withdrew the $2,700 from Jordan's savings account. Then we paid down our business line of credit, the $2,700 on the same day. We were saving 0.5% interest since our line of credit was 6.5% and we were only paying our son 6%. So we were saving 0.5%. And instead of paying the interest to the bank, we paid the 6% to our son. Step number 4 is record the loan information. So I wrote down the following on one sheet of paper and I put it in our business file. So this is our business line of credit. Okay, so depending on what kind of credit you're doing, you would put it in a different place. But I have a folder where I keep all my information on my business. So on a piece of paper, I wrote down the date of the loan, the day I withdrew the money from Jordan's savings account, and I also wrote down what the interest rate was, which is 6%. Step number 5 is set up automatic payments. So in our online banking for our business, I set up automatic payments to my son by doing the following. So the first thing I did was I set up my son's information in our bill payment section as a vendor, bank, person. Number 2 is I set up the interest payments to be sent out every month to my son. And number 3 is I set up so that the whole amount of the loan would be repaid in 1 year. So basically I set up the loan so that it was a 1-year term. We pay interest only all year, and then the final month we pay the whole balance back. So that's how I set up the loan. In the next slides, I will show you step by step how we set up the automatic payments in our online banking. So the first thing I did was I logged into my online banking and went to bill payments, and that's a screenshot from my bank. They have this menu on the top that's accounts, transfer, bill payments, mobile banking, other services, preferences, and I circled their bill payments. So I clicked on that and I went there, and then I went to add a company or person. So at the bottom of when I hit bill payments, I came to payment center, and then at the top it had this button that said add a company or a person, and I wanted to add my son, so I clicked that button. And then what happened was a pop-up window appeared, and be sure you can use pop-up screens. So you have to make sure your browser will show you pop-up screens. A lot of people get stuck on this part, but you can always call your bank for assistance. I'm just showing you how my bank did it as an example. a pop-up window appeared, and I entered in my son's information. So it says add a company or person. I selected person, and then I wrote in his name, his first and last name. I wrote in our mailing address because he lives with us, right? The phone number, all the information it asked for. And then I verified all his information, and I pressed this add button to add him as a person to pay. And then what happens is he's in my bill payment section, and his name shows up, Jordan Duldalau, and then I can set up payments to him. And since he's a person, what's going to happen is my bill payment is going to send him a check. So you have to do 3 things. You have to choose the account you want to pay him from. All right, so I had an account that I paid him from. You have to choose the amount, and then you have to set the date you're going to pay it. So as you can see here, there's some payments I already made. There's pending payments. So what I did was I scheduled the next payment after the June, because between June and October, you see there's a gap, right? Basically, I couldn't schedule them all at one time. My online banking wouldn't let me. So you have to be sure to enter them in as you go along in the year if it has a limit. But what I did was I calculated his interest. So it was $2,700, and the interest was 6.5%. So what I did was I took 6%. So I multiplied 6%, right, 0.06 times 2,700, and then I divided by 12. All right, so that was how I got my monthly interest payment of $13.50. So what I did was I started this loan. The loan was actually created in November. I think it was November. Actually, it was created in October 27 of 2016 for $2,700. So the first interest payment to him happened in November. So the last interest payment that's going to be paid to him, so November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. I'll have to verify this, but you want to make sure he gets his 12 interest payments, okay? If you want to make it so that the last month you pay him back and he doesn't get interest, that's fine too. As long as you're paying him interest every month. Now, I chose this method because I thought it was easier to calculate. Like, I'll just calculate what the interest is every month and pay him the interest straight up. Then I don't have to worry about compounding. So I chose the account number. I put in $13.50. I put in the date I want to put it in. Since I borrowed on the 27th of the month, I pay him his interest on the 27th of every month. So I already put in other months. I put in November. I think I already put in, I have to look back, but anyway, November, December, January, and then there's February, March, April, May, June. So I put in July here. So what happens is once you do that, it will ask you to review your payment. So I just checked to make sure it was going to Jordan and that it was paid from the correct account, $13.50. I put a memo in there just to remind myself of what this was. And I put it was the loan interest for $2,700 at 6%. Okay, and then I made sure everything was correct and I submitted payment. So that's all you have to do to create the automatic payments in your online banking. And it's really important to do that because then you remember to pay the interest to your child. If there wasn't online banking, I don't know if I would recommend this method to people unless you are extremely organized. But because of online banking, it makes it easier for people to be organized. So in summary, how to make your child a bank. Okay. Basically, step number 1 is you compare the interest rate for your child's savings and a loan or a line of credit that you have. Determine how much your child can lend to you. Create the loan from your child. Record the date of the loan, amount, where it came from, interest rate, and payoff date. And set up automatic payments in your online banking to pay it back. In conclusion, as parents, we want our child to be safe, and we also want his money safe. Always look for the safest way to invest my son's money. If you have debt and you are credit worthy, you have to be credit worthy because if you find that you don't make your current debt payments, this is not going to work for your child because you might lose your children's money. Like if you find that you owe money to a credit card and you're not paying it on time because of whatever reason. Maybe your work is not stable, or maybe you just keep forgetting, or you're paying too many different bills and you don't have enough money, then this is not a good way to invest your child's money. However, if you are credit worthy, and my husband and I are very credit worthy, we just have steady income. We've always made all our payments. We've never been late. So, excuse me. So we are very credit worthy. So this method is a great way for us, and it's a great way for you if you also have debt and are credit worthy, to help your children make more interest. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Learn more financial freedom tips at yesfinanciallyfree.com. And remember, you have a lot of power in you. There's no reason to pay interest to a bank. If you can pay interest to your child, or even yourself, if you have savings, you can do it for yourself too, then definitely should do that. Okay, so I'm going to exit this, and if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. Like I said, my name is May Duldalau. My blog is yesfinanciallyfree.com. Always there to help people. If you're on my email list, email me. If you're not, go to yesfinanciallyfree.com and get on my email list. Thank you so much for joining today, and I want to say to all of you, aloha.